Hello everybody and welcome back to my SevTech Ages Tricks video, tips video. First one we're going to go over today is the Carryon mod. So as long as both of your hands are empty, you hit shift or crouch and right click. You can pick up entities and then you can carry them around. Your movement speed is reduced, but you can pick things up and carry them around, put them back down. Handy for putting escapees back in their pens or getting them in there in the first place. Won't work on larger animals like the buffaloes, but you could use them on the baby buffaloes. The particularly handy thing is you can pick up chests and shelves, so when I moved everything from my starter base over there into the first building that I built there, that's what I used the Carryon mod for. For age 1, you will need to be on the lookout for the mulberry trees because you will need these to get out of the first age, or the age 1. So make sure if you see any of these, you chop them down, try to grab a sapling or two so you can replant them closer to your base, unless you happen to be lucky enough to base beside a mulberry tree or two. But you will need a fair amount of it, so don't hesitate to go and grab a stack of the logs if you can early on. Let's talk about chunk borders. So the horsepower machines have a funny interaction with chunk borders in the fact that if the animal happens to be across a chunk border, when you load in, that the lead has a chance to break. So if you're finding that your animals are running free and your leads are disappearing on you, this is the reason why. Now to see your chunk borders, you just have to hit F9. So there are 4 different modes, off obviously, and then the first one, not so helpful. The red dots show the corners of chunks and the yellow lines will show you the middles of chunks. But the handy one is the second mode, which will give you a grid around each individual chunk. As you can see here, I planned my horsepower machines out pretty carefully and managed to get all 3 of these located within one chunk. Just to note that the pathways here do make the running time of the fastest animal, which is the buffalo. So this is as fast as you can pretty much get the machines in the early ages with the paths and the buffaloes. The other handy thing with chunk borders is the fact that when you're looking for certain wood types, so in age 1, you will need to make the beneath teleporter, and the Abyssal Craft ritual to make it requires the dark oak fence gate. If you don't happen to have been anywhere close to a dark oak biome, then you would either have to run all over the countryside looking for a dark oak tree to get it, or if you look at the Survivalist Strainer's uses, you can see that it does give you all a bunch of different various kinds of planks, and the type of plank it will give you will depend on the chunk that it's in. So it actually took me about 11 different tries to finally find the chunk over here, where my strainer is down there, before I found dark oak. But once I found it, I just left it there, and I got a few planks of dark oak so that I could make that fence gate to complete the teleporter. The next thing to touch on are some extra storage options we have available in age 1. The 2 wooden crates, the Abyssal Craft and the Primal Core. So both of these are about the size of a chest, but with one significant drawback. Can you hear the difference? So they don't make any noises when opening and closing them, so if it's something that irks you, distracts you, you don't like it, then that's up to you. You can choose to craft these or not. Just note that the recipe for the wooden Abyssal Craft crate is a little bit cheaper when you're crafting 2 at a time. You just can't put 2 side by side to get a double chest. So it does take a chest, but then less than 8 more planks to make, and then you'll get 2 out of the recipe. The Primal Core storage crate is a lot more expensive, so twice as expensive. However, it does have a significant advantage in the fact that it will retain inventories So you can throw things in there, even backpacks. So this is where you really start to open the rabbit hole for storage. And then using the Carryon mod, you just crouch and right click and you can pick it up, put it into your inventory. You can see the things didn't spill out anywhere, didn't fall anywhere. If I put this back down, they are still in there. So just a super handy option if you've got all of the wood, or even if you don't want to make the backpacks in the first place. And then you just have, because you don't want to grind the leather, you just can build these storage crates and use these in your inventory. Maybe use different kinds of woods so you know what is in each of the different things if you're going to be using multiples. Speaking of grinding out leather, we do get access to the basin when we get to age 1, and it also gives us these aqueducts, which we can see down below where I have this water here. These aqueducts are super handy for moving water long distances, and if you build a lot of them, you can flow water an infinite amount of distance, really. The other handy thing is that while this is the source block of water that I put down using a bucket, which you don't actually get until the end of age 1 down here, you can put the aqueducts down beside a river or something like that, and then plop your your basin down beside that for doing your bulk crafting, for getting all of your leather needs done. I also did bread. I had bread set up over here as well inside my base. I used barrels at some point for doing small amounts of crafting. You can get 8 buckets at a time into a barrel, but for doing big bulk runs, I did just pick this up and move it down by the river where I initially had my aqueducts set up. And just note that aside from this block here, these blocks will be infinite water. So if I grab my bladder, I throw it into my basin there, I can pick up the water from there and throw it into my basin, and I can do that an infinite number of times. Just be careful not to do your source block, because then it will all disappear on you. So one of the main aims of the game in modded Minecraft is getting automation set up for doing lots of things doing multiple things at one time. So with the melter set up there, you can actually set up a hopper going into the side of your melter with a chest on top, and you can plop all of your metals that you want to melt inside that chest, and they will feed in there, and you can get a good buffer going there. I had my casting basin set up there with a hopper underneath flowing into this chest here. And then at this point in the pack, you can't automate the pouring. So every time I came by my base here or by the melter and I had a block's worth of molten metal in there, I would just right click on there and let that dry and do its thing and go off and do other stuff at the same time. Great for multitasking. Another thing you can automate is your furnaces. But just note that you can lead to some fuel wastage if you're not doing like 8 items at a time exactly. A solution to this is the coal pieces, and you can do this with charcoal as well. So to make these, you just take a piece of coal, put it in your crafting grid, and you'll get 8 coal pieces out. To transfer it back, you do need to put the tiny coal pieces into the press. So you would have to put those back into the horse press if you wanted to get your coal back, but you can convert them back and forth if you want. So speaking of mining up all of our goodies, I'll just grab a prospector here. Oh, let's find her there. It's raining and it's dark outside, so let's get rid of that junk right now with a quick sleep. And when you find the samples up on the surface, you can locate exactly where the vein is down below. And this is another use for your chunk borders. So you just bring up your grid. You can find that all of this coal is located somewhere inside this chunk. For myself, I'll just look down here, don't find anything. You don't have to look on every block. but if you move 2 or 3 at a time, 4 at a time, oh geez, started to find some coal here, so that's good. I've already been down this hole, so it is down at the bottom here somewhere. We'll just jump down. And I will show you the next trick that I have down here, integrating some of the totemic mod from age 0 into play here. So I'll set up totems with buffalo. You'll need 5 buffaloes plus the totem base to get this to work, and this will give you haste 3, which will make out mining all of this great big vein a lot quicker. It does have a good decent range. You can see I get all the way down about this far away before that haste runs out, but if I move 1 block closer, there it's back again. So you do get a pretty good distance away. So just try and locate the middle of the vein. I just clear out a little bit that direction, a little bit that direction till it ends, and then I went up here and I looked up this direction here till I got to the end, estimated the middle, dug down 6, and then with your whittling knife, if you crouch and use your scroll wheel, you can flip back and forth between all of your things pretty quickly, whereas normally you would just crouch and hit right click and you can only cycle in one direction, whereas with the mouth wheel you can go in 2 different directions. Meet you back in the base. So one thing that can be made in age 1, although you don't have access to the materials really, unless you happen to find a notch apple or a regular golden apple, is the gluttony charm. This makes eating really quick. It's not super handy for normal gameplay, but when you're in the middle of a battle and you need to heal up quick, it can be really handy. So I do suggest making it, and it just goes into your bauble slots, opening up your baubles with this little gadget here. And there's not really any description on saying what it does, but it is a nice handy little thing. It is technically available in age 1, but you really can't make it till you get access to gold in age 2. This is my better with mods setup. We'll just ignore the stuff on the left there because that was stuff I added in age 3. But I put my wheel inside under cover because if this is outside during a storm, you can burn out your gearboxes. So with the gearbox, you can see one of the recipes here involves the broken wooden gearbox, and that will happen if you have your wheel outside, a storm happens and you don't have a way to turn off your gearbox, i.e. with a redstone signal, typically done with the chimes from the totemic mod. And then the gears being the most expensive piece in the creation of these in the first place, it is pretty painful to have it break down, especially if you're doing any sort of decent amount of grinding up of porcelain or grout or what have you in your grinder, or if you're, I guess you really can't automate the saw, but yeah, your grinder, or if you're doing some turntable work, it can be pretty annoying to have your gearboxes break on you. The last thing to touch on are the different recipes. So as you move forward in the ages, you actually do get access to some of them. You get access to easier recipes. So we see here in age 0, to make our wooden gear, we needed to grind out the buffaloes and the cedar trees from totemic to get gears. In age 1, it introduces a new recipe where you can actually make it with just pieces of glue, which if you just follow along in JEI, you can figure out how to make that, and some planks and some sticks to make a gear. And then in age 2, you actually get access to the wood plank corners, which will make a gear by themselves. Each plank makes up to 8 corners, so each plank technically can give you 8 wooden gears when you get to age 2. So if you want to do a big better with mods setup, I do suggest waiting until age 2. I think that's everything I wanted to touch on today. I will be back with some more age 1 tips, going over the blood magic and abyssal craft mods separately, because they have quite a bit of stuff that's not touched on in the book, which can make your life a lot easier in SevTech. Take care, and I will see you later. Jenny, bye-bye.